Community Powers Community Advisory Committee. My name is David Harris and I represent the city of La Mesa. As chair, I welcome members of the public, San Diego Community Power staff, and committee members joining us in person and online today. Thank you to Community Power staff for making this in-person meeting possible, and for the Port of San Diego for accommodating us in this conference room. I will now call the meeting to order. Assistant Clerk of the Board, Sandra Vincent, please call the roll.
Committee member Sclafani. Committee member Gonzalez.
Present.
Committee member Hammond.
Here.
Committee member Hoyt.
Here.
Committee member Anderson.
Present.
Committee member Sumner.
Here.
Committee member Emerson.
Here.
Committee member Vasilakis.
Present.
Secretary Pike.
Present.
Vice Chair Montero Adams.
Present.
Chair Harris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you. Please rise. Yes, and the flag of allegiance. Please begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We would also like to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge that the Kumeyaay Nation are the original inhabitants of the land now known as San Diego, where this meeting is taking place today. We carry their legacy forward, ensuring that their traditions continue to thrive in gratitude and strength, and we stand with the Kumeyaay Nation, connected to our past and committed to a more just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. So a quorum is present. Tonight's agenda will be reordered. We're going to have item number 8, regulatory and legislative affairs update, go ahead of item number 7, which is the clean energy grants update. We think those two should be switched because the Cal CCA presentation and the legislative affairs update are very complementary. Sandra, are there any other items on the agenda to be withdrawn or reordered?
There are no.
Okay. Next up, non-agenda public comment. Written public comments submitted before the committee meeting are emailed to all CAC members prior to the committee meeting and will be posted on the website at the beginning of the meeting. Sandra, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
No.
Moving right along. The consent agenda contains items that can be approved as a package without discussion unless a CAC member or a member of the public requests that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The CAC received staff reports for all items on the consent agenda, and staff provided an opportunity for questions and comments during briefings prior to this meeting. Today's consent agenda includes the approval of December 4th, 2025 CAC meeting minutes. Second, the update on marketing, public relations, and local government affairs. Third, the update on customer operations. Then the update on programs, and fifth, update on power services. Sandra, do we have any public comment on any of these consent items? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to remove any item from the consent agenda for a separate vote? Okay, seeing none. I now turn it over to the committee members for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Need a second? Okay, so we have a motion by.
There was no public comment.
Oh,
That's it.
did I miss that one?
You're good.
Okay. We have a motion by Ross Pike and a second by Matthew Vasilakis. Clerk, please call the vote.
Committee member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Committee member Hammond.
Aye.
Committee member Hoyt.
Aye.
Committee member Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Committee member Sumner.
Aye.
Committee member Emerson.
Aye.
Committee member Vasilakis.
Aye.
Secretary Pike.
Aye.
Vice Chair Montero Adams.
Aye.
Chair Harris.
Aye.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's now move to the regular agenda, starting with item 6, an informational presentation on the California Community Choice Association. As a reminder to members, you may ask staff clarifying questions during the presentation, but I kindly ask that we will wait until the end of the presentation for a full discussion. Today, we have Jackson, Communications and Marketing Manager at CalCCA, who will provide this presentation. Welcome.
Thanks, glad to be here. So just that's me. All right, guys. As you said, I'm Jackson McDonough. I'm with CalCCA. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager at CalCCA. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to share a quick overview of CalCCA, kind of sharing who we are, who we represent, and how we support community choice aggregators across California. All right, just to start with some basics about CalCCA itself, we launched in 2016 by 6 operational CCAs. There are now over 24 operational CCAs in California. We also include affiliate members, and those are local governments that are actively considering CCA formation as well. Our board consists of 16 directors. Those are the leaders of these CCAs, and we have 20 full-time employees as staff. This is a photo of our team after last year's annual conference. So just a little snapshot of everyone's smile. Great. So our organizational structure is a little unique as an association. You could see here, this is a kind of a quick snapshot of it. We have dedicated teams focused on policy and regulatory work, legislative advocacy, communications, and member services. These are all centered on supporting our member CCAs, helping them navigate what is honestly a very complex energy landscape. At the top, you'll see our board of directors. This board is made up entirely of the leadership from our member CCAs, and our direction comes directly from them. So everything we work on is member-driven and grounded in their priorities. At the bottom, you'll see a broader network that really powers the organization day to day. Our staff committees, working groups, and Tiger teams. These are collective and collaborative spaces where members come together to share best practices, coordinate strategy, and solve challenges that affect CCAs across the state. These include members of our team, along with the staff of different CCAs. Now, CalCCA's purpose. CalCCA's main purpose is to engage in regulatory and legislative advocacy on behalf of our members, to coordinate and lead on policy development, and to be the unified voice of California CCAs. We also serve as a platform for our members to communicate and coordinate with each other and to share best practices and lessons learned in just about every area of CCA operations. We include a multitude of tools to communicate, educate, and engage a broad range of audiences, but this is always through the lens of supporting the success and long-term sustainability of our membership. So just a quick overview on CCA growth here. You can see on the right, we have our CCA launch timeline starting in 2010 and headed all the way through 2022, although growth continues to happen. That happens more at the expansion level, and I'll get into that in a second. On the left, you can see a map displaying where CCA is located throughout the state. Just something to note, this is a kind of simplified map so that it's easy to do in a handout. I believe you guys should have the handout in front of you as well. We actually had a more complicated GIS accurate map on our website. Feel free to check that out, and that'll show the exact areas that CCAs are being served, as well as it's a tool for customers to check which CCA their customer is too. On the right, you'll see that we've had expansions through the past couple of years. You can see in 2021, San Diego Community Power there. The last 2 to launch were Orange County Power Authority and Epic, which is Palmdale. And since then, there haven't been any new CCA launches, but instead what we've seen is a shift to CCA expansions as they've moved to a number of different areas. You can see on the left there, looking at that map in the orange, we have displayed all cities and counties that have filed an implementation plan, which means that they intend to launch service for a CCA territory. And you can see there's quite a few cities down south and then counties and cities up north. So what does that look like by the numbers? Overall, right now we serve, or CCAs serve 229 cities and counties. That's around 36% of the counties with CCAs, 43% of cities and towns in California being served by CCA, and then over 16 million people being served by CCAs. So that's 41% of California's population. Here you can see that represented in a slightly different way. This is actually a snapshot of retail load that's served by different types of energy providers, CCAs, POUs, IOUs, and direct access. As shown in this pie chart, public power overall provides more than half of the retail energy load in California, which is honestly just a pretty interesting stat. But we can also look at CCA directly and see that it is grown to 27% of the total load. And this number has increased a lot over just the past couple of years. Okay, sorry. Next, I just want to plug really quickly our Powered by Community video. This is a video that brings to life key moments in the growth of CCA in California. If you're interested in learning more, this is a fantastic resource to watch. It explains the origins of CCA in California all the way from 2002 with the signing of AB. Oh, wow, I'm getting quizzed on the numbers. Sorry about that. You'll see it in the video. AB 117, there we go. For that first launched CCA in California, and then how that formed to the first CCA launching in 2010. Great, and it's just a good video. It's narrated by Peter Coyote too, which is kind of fun. Yeah. Great. Okay, so one thing that is unique about CCAs is that while we all share the same goals, you can see a couple of them listed out here: affordability, reliability, decarbonization, and equity. Each program takes its own path towards these different goals. And the strategies vary based on local priorities and local governance. And that flexibility actually comes as a strength because it allows innovation while we stay aligned on. So you can see this one this is a very complicated slide. Don't worry about going into detail on these. Just know that this is where Cal CCA's main priorities lie and where the bulk of our work goes into. This is mostly our policy work. It's grown along with the growth and expansion of CCAs in California. And now we're involved in over 60 proceedings and stakeholder processes at CPUC, the California ISO, CEC, CARB, FERC, and more. Some proceedings get larger and smaller. Some eventually disappear. But more often than not, they are ongoing and require a tremendous amount of time and expertise. Just last year, our regulatory team submitted more than 6,600 pages of filings. So hats off to that team. Can't imagine the amount of work that takes. And it's a lot actually keeping these balls in the air. Cool. We also work very closely in the legislative field. And there's some key policy issues that face CCAs universally. And these can range from procurement to interconnection challenges to resource adequacy requirements. PCIA costs is a really big one. You'll hear that word thrown around if you haven't heard the PCIA yet. I can explain it like you have. Yeah, that's a huge focus for Cal CCA. I'll go into a little more detail on the further slide. There's also growing load from electrification and new data centers coming online. But really the one thread that ties all these things together, all the lens together of all these issues is affordability. That's the number one issue that most CCAs are working on right now. So in this upcoming legislative session, Cal CCA is looking at priority-wise to sponsor 2 bills in 2026. We actually haven't sponsored legislation since 2021, though we've been very active in a number of bills. And I'll go into that in a little more detail too later. But the one bill that we have that is currently actually just got filed 3 days ago is the PCIA Data Transparency Bill. That's AB 1761. And the author is Chris Rogers of District 2 in the State Assembly. And this bill would require the IOU and CPUC to provide transparent data on PCIA calculations to CCAs, which would be a huge benefit to CCAs in order to understand the methodology that goes into these calculations, double checking the math there to make sure that we're getting charged the appropriate amount, and then also anticipating what those charges are going to be so that we can start to level the playing field. Happy to go into more detail now and see if anyone has some questions. The second one will be around RA transactability. This one isn't too complicated. Well, it is complicated when you go into the weeds of it. But basically what we're asking here is that all LSCs, basically how it is right now is that all LSCs have to show that they meet the peak demand for each hour of the day. However, the resources are contracted for multiple hours, often in large blocks. So what we're asking for is that they change this from blocks of time to hours of time, just like the requirements have. And so that'll eliminate people having to buy. We use the acronym, use an example. Why buy the whole crate of oranges if you only need one orange? And so we'd like to be able to just buy that one orange instead of the entire crate. That'll help save money and drive down costs as well. So both of these bills are both focused on affordability. We had some legislative wins from last year. Affordability was a huge priority this last year as well. I'll go through these very quickly. Many of our priorities were reflected in SB 254 and AB 825. Those together generate cost savings in several ways, including establishing a transmission infrastructure accelerator, securitization of $6 billion in wildfire safety capital investments, advancing cost-effective wildfire mitigation, and enabling participation in a broader Western regional energy market, which we were quite involved in. We have a number, CCAs themselves have a number of cost-saving tools and strategies, and they're exploring these even more to help keep costs down. Green bonds is a big one because they're nonprofit agencies. CCAs can access tax-exempt municipal financing for power purchase agreements. Transmission financing is something that we've been looking into as well, along with regional coordination with the Pathways Initiative, and then resource adequacy market reforms, along with transparency and accountability, which I mentioned before is partly with those bills that we're filing. And then there are other opportunities as well, possibly with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. All this amounts to savings. I won't go into detail too much on this one, but just in the last year alone, CCAs or CalCCA itself has been focused on a number of issues that won't appear in the legislature that are smaller issues that we focus on fixing with the regulatory process. And so you probably won't read those unless you follow our filings page, which is quite extensive. If you guys are curious, you can always check that out. We post all of our filings online, but I've tried to read them. There's thousands and thousands of pages. So. But these are a couple of snapshots of regulatory wins that we've had over the past year that have amounted to real dollar savings for CCAs and to their customers. Okay, now back to CalCCA a little bit itself. I am part of the comms and membership team, so I got to give ourselves a little bit of a shout out. Comms and membership touches on many parts of this business. It has tons of different initiatives. One of our main goals is to ensure our members are kept on top of the latest legislative and policy developments. This includes providing expert analysis, presentations, talking points, and FAQs, hopefully to make complex matters more understandable for hopefully you guys and the public as well. We have multiple communication vehicles to boost and amplify achievements of our membership. And this includes events, webinars, publications such as our quarterly report, which I believe you guys have in front of you. We have a monthly news aggregator, info sheets, our website, social media, and a couple examples of these is here we have our CCA PPA long-term stats. This is an annual PPA announcement that we do every year. And this is a tally, an aggregate of all CCAs in California. We're now up to over 21 gigawatts of renewable and energy storage. This equates to 9,700 megawatts that are operational so far. So that's projects that are currently providing power. And then that's 48.4 billion that are committed by CCAs to build and operate these projects. And that overall is support for more than 48,000 construction jobs. If you're interested in learning more, we have tons of more info on our website around this, and we release a number of different tools to help visualize this, including a map, a press release. We have graphs, and we actually release a PPA spreadsheet as well that shows where those projects are being served. I'm just going to give another shout out for our explainers online. produce a number of different contents. One of them now that we've moved into is white papers and technical briefs. A big one that we're going to use in this upcoming cycle, especially for that bill that we're running, is around this resource adequacy transactability. These resources, help explain complex policy and issues in detail, showing how their improvements can reduce costs and increase efficiency. We also have if you guys haven't seen it yet, the PCIA explainer on our website. This is updated weekly. And so if you want a real-time update on what is going on with the PCIA, what Cal CCA is doing to combat it, and what the key issues in this arena are, this is a fantastic resource. There's a ton of info on it, but we try to make it as simple as possible for how complex of an issue it is. So hopefully, if you guys have any suggestions, always happy to take some. But this is our attempt to explain the PCIA in digestible terms. Great. Finally, we're excited about our upcoming conference, 10-year anniversary celebration. This is a great opportunity for learning, collaboration, and connecting with others in the CCA world and the clean energy space. This year, it'll be in Sacramento. This will mark our 10-year anniversary as well. So we'll hopefully have some key legislators, people from the regulatory field as well. We wanted to make it really easy for them to attend, so it's in town this time. And we're not capped with space, so we're expecting over 1,000 attendees, lots of networking opportunities, and some really fantastic speakers this year. Great. So that just about does it. It's a very quick overview of Cal CCA. I'm sure there's a million things that I missed, but happy to answer any questions or dive deeper into anything that you guys would find helpful. I know we had a couple of questions beforehand, so I can jump into those. Yes.
Hold on 1 second, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Jackson, for your presentation. Sandra, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Yes.
In the energy markets, are CCAs collaborative or competitive? In other words, are different CCAs attempting to outbid each other for certain producers? Or do they share? If they have excess, do they share? I'm completely clueless about this.
That might be a better question for your San Diego Community Power team, but I know there are a number of collaborations that happen between CCAs. In fact, there is another entity called California Community Power, which several CCAs are a part of. And the whole purpose of that is to do group projects, basically. So they work together to sign PPAs together. There's also just joint power procurements that people enter without having to join those as well. And I believe San Diego's had several of those. So yeah. It is generally collaborative. I'm sure there might be scenarios where they compete against each other, but it is very collaborative. Yeah, you might be able to answer that better than I can.
Sure. Well, I would just add to what Jackson has said. By and large, we are actually very collaborative. We are not contiguous in the sense that we're not competing for geographic area. We have set up structures to bid together on certain projects. We trade with each other. And yes, there is demand for resources by and large, but I wouldn't say that we're outbidding each other. It's a much more collaborative where we share all kinds of, including best practices, including opportunities to jointly bid for resources. So much more collaborative.
Good answer. I had no idea. Thanks.
It really is a uniquely collaborative space, especially within the Cal CCA ecosystem. We have a number of different committees and groups that are just dedicated purely to collaboration and sharing best practices and things like that.
Yes.
Speaking of the local team, and I think that this committee is an extension of the local team. How do you, I appreciate that you guys do all the heavier lifting at the state level. Sacramento is a short flight away, but I'm happy to let you do it. How do you activate the local team, though, staff and beyond, to support you in the legislative efforts?
So we have a number of different activities. So part of that would be our legislative committee that meets regularly. We actually meet weekly on Fridays. And there's tons of members of San Diego Community Power that are members of that. And those are the chair of the committees, Cal CCA staff. But it's a huge collaborative effort between everyone. Along with that, we have a number of events. Just last week, we were in Sacramento all together for our CalCCA Lobby Day. That was a great event that we went and met with different legislators from all over. We were rushing around the swing space in Sacramento and just having meetings basically the whole time, educating about CalCCA, about CCAs in general, and the efforts that CCAs are making, and some of the upcoming bills that we are hoping to run as well. But yeah, it's tough being local versus there, but it's just a collaborative effort that everyone works together on.
If I could add to that, so there's, just to add on to what Jackson is saying, so we have a number of committees, I'm not even sure how many, 15, maybe more, that different staff members of our different CCAs will participate in to inform us on a number of things, whether they're regulatory based or legislative based or best practices based. And then every CEO is a member of the board of the CalCCA. So I'm on the board, I can say the secretary as well. And so we meet monthly and we're always in dialogue about things that are happening at the state level. How can we collaborate? Where can we align? So that's how some of these bills came about, was through up through the committees, up to the CalCCA, and then out through to the board members. So there's multiple levels of collaboration at committee level. And then of course, our local electeds, right, that often go from local to state politics too. So there's some dialogue there. And as Jackson was saying, we do go and meet with and advance the interests of the CCA community through regular connections with Sacramento. I was there last week as well. I'll probably be there 2 or 3 more times this year, because it's really important that they see us, that they hear from us. They're hearing a CCA narrative as well as the counter narrative that's often there at the same time. And so we try to present that fair, impartial, focus on customers, focus on affordability approach to what we're doing, and build trust and also build expertise so they see us as the experts that we are, and so that they can come to us with questions that they have.
Yeah, and that's really important to know. That's been a change that we've seen happen over the past several. CalCCA has been around for 10 years now. We're starting to really see the benefits of that. And as CCAs and our advocacy has matured, we've become the trusted source. And we've, instead of chasing people, some of the legislators are coming to us. We actually had a little bit of a competition to sponsor our bill. It's like the first time I usually like kind of begging them, like, please, like, but we actually had almost a bidding war between a couple of different sponsors, and I expect it'll be pretty similar with this next bill that I think we have an author. I don't know if we're allowed to announce it yet, but yeah, we'll see. It'll be filed soon. So that's really exciting. And then just to add on to, you reminded me, beyond the committees, like I said, there's a number of Tiger teams, and these are smaller groups that meet usually on a more like frequent basis that are just focused to a very singular topic or a singular issue. And these ones meet all the time, multiple times a week, sometimes depending on the issue. And those are to tackle regulatory or legislative problems as well.
It was Jack or Jackson?
Jackson.
Jackson, okay, Jackson, yeah, thanks for your presentation. I know I've heard California PCA before, but this is nice to have this quarterly report and a nice map as an overview, so thank you so much. I have kind of 3 general questions. You mentioned there's 20 employees, so I thought this CalCCA was just a collaborative between the local CCA, but you have your own employees. So where does the fund? That's one of the questions. Where does the funding come? Is that separate from the state, or all the CCAs contribute? And then you mentioned, I'll go through the questions real quick. We can go back if you sure. 41% of the population is being serviced by the CCA, but 27% of the total load. So I'm kind of interested in what are the current strengths of the load that we're providing, and what are some of the near-term goals to increase that load? And finally, you mentioned affordability, and you had a nice table there with like about 6 items. I'm interested, is that affordability focused on infrastructure, reduce infrastructure costs, or just the energy costs? So that's my 3 major questions.
Okay, Great. We'll start with the first one. Do you mind just going over quickly with that?
Yeah, funding, so where is the funding for the county?
Yeah, so we are an association, so like any association, we receive funding through membership dues.
Okay.
Yeah, and that goes to fund our staff and events and also the newsletter that you see in front of you. But those all go towards advocacy and like policy
So
work.
we're all contributing to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the second one, again, there's 41% of the population being served, 27% of the load is being provided. So what's the strength and where are the goals to expand that percent of the load?
So it really depends on each CCA and what they're looking to do with their local procurement strategies. Cal CCA is not ourselves prescriptive of what, what CCAs are procuring or how they're procuring it. So that would have to be like a question that would go to individual CCAs because they all have slightly different priorities there.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be a better question for them. But there is some discrepancies and that just depends on the size of the customer, where the customer is located, different items like that.
And then affordability, is that focused just on the energy side or also reducing the cost of the, so people look at their bill, a lot of it on the grid part.
Yeah.
Are they
So-
looking for ways to reduce that grid part as well on those examples you had?
That's a fantastic question. And that's something that we've been talking about a lot recently. So for a long time, I've been focusing on getting reductions on the generation side, the portion of the bill that CCAs control. Now, I mean, we'll see what happens. We are not in control of the transmission and distribution side. So we don't really have a say in what the costs like that are. Although we are looking at possible longer-term solutions that might help reduce and alleviate other parts of the bill. A big one, obviously, is PCIA, which is not a charge that we control, but looking to reduce that and maybe possibly transmission distribution costs down the line. But those are things that would be a bit further down. But that's something that we've definitely started looking at. And some CCAs are taking very serious consideration into because that is a huge, like you said, it's usually 2/3 of the bill. And so, while that currently isn't part of our purview, it would be something that we'd like to be able to help customers out with. Or I can't speak for you guys, but.
Yeah, I would just add that to Jack's point, historically, we've been focused really on the generation side, what we can control, which is a portion of the generation side. PCIA is we are looking at things like how we can support, say, public financing of transmission. That's one area that, generally speaking, whether that's Cal CCA or other municipal finance, that can potentially reduce the cost of large-scale transmission bills. So there's some things on the edges that we can try, and the Cal CCA is starting to evolve in that direction. As to your point, we noticed, right? We do so much on the gen side. Is there anything else we can do for affordability in the T&D side? And that's just one of the areas that, as a whole, we're exploring. And that's as far as it's got.
Good.
Mr. Anderson.
I didn't group my questions together, so taking a minute time. This excellent map is almost isomorphic with the major population centers of California. And yet, in your talk, you said that only something like 41% of the population is served by CCAs. What's the disconnect there? Are there competitions within these areas? Or are there big missing population centers that I don't know about?
So that map is purely representative of the counties and individual cities as dots. You can see we have a little bit more of an accurate map on our website. That's what I talk about, the GIS accurate map. So you can see the exact lines where CCA territories overlap. Part of that will be territories that are not served by CCAs, so individual cities within those counties that might not be served. Another portion of that will be taken out by customers that receive direct access, or publicly owned utilities as well.
What
So
was the last one?
publicly owned utilities. So like SMUD, for example, would be an example of a big one, or LADWP would be a big one. And so those are cut out from the geographic.
So they're not counted, even though they're very similar to, and in fact, more encompassing than a CCA.
Yeah, so not counted as a CCA, but I did include them, in our fund statistic, over half is being served by public power. So We do work and collaborate with them. SMUD actually is a big contributor to Cal CCA as well, and we partner with them on a number of events and activities. So we're still really involved in the public power sphere as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question about the change in federal policies related to renewable energy. How's that affecting the pipeline of projects? I know that there was like a cutoff of when projects have to come online in order to qualify for the tax credits and so on. But without getting too much into the weeds, just an overview, how is federal changes at the federal level affecting our CCAs in California?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's tough to say. I could say very broadly and very cautiously because, you know, who knows exactly what is going to happen in the future. And as we see these effects start to take place. But you are right. Because they rescinded the tax credits, any solar and wind projects that haven't started construction by July 6th, 2026 will not receive this credit. And so it will have an effect on procurement. We'll have to see exactly what that effect will be, but we predict that probably prices go up and the market will tighten a bit as fewer projects are projected to be built. But that being said, this will affect all energy suppliers. So people are rapidly working to try to solve this, including the state as well. And so hopefully there's some solutions that end up coming out. But again, all of the energy providers and energy suppliers in California have to adhere to all sorts of different requirements for all of our goals. And so procurement will still move forward. New projects still will get built, although we'll just have to we'll have to tighten up a bit on which projects we choose, and I'm sure that'll have an effect on the market. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes. And affordability being the number one policy issue, that's certainly a big concern that future energy costs could go up rather than down.
Yeah, and that's especially why everyone at San Diego Community Power and Cal CCA and all the other CCAs, our number one focus is on affordability and working to keep those costs as low as possible and provide real benefits to the customers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jackson. I think that this is a receive and file item and no further action is needed. Thank you for your
Thank you so much.
participation.
Actually, I live in San Diego. 20 minutes away. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
We will now move on to our reordered items. Item 8, which is regulatory and legislative affairs update. I will turn it over to
Patrick Welch.
Patrick Welch, Senior, who's on the regulatory and legislative affairs team. Patrick.
Mr. Chair and CSD members, Associate Director of Legislative Affairs. You're going to hear from myself really briefly. Legislative update will dovetail really nicely with what Jackson just talked about. We'll hear from Laura on the general regulatory update, and then Aisha Sisna will provide a specific update on regulatory matters as they pertain to energy efficiency. Just also want to say thank you to our partners at Cal CCA. That collective action on all these issues affecting the 24 CCs around the state is really important. So thank you, Jackson, for being here and the whole Cal CCA team. It's very important. As you can see, there are a lot of issues both in Sacramento and at San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. So we just started the second year of a 2-year legislative session, started in January. Some key deadlines, bills can be introduced up until February 20th, so next Friday. So things are starting to pick up a little bit now. And bills must be passed this year by August 31st at midnight. Some changes in the Senate. There's a new Senate leader. There's a new chair of the Senate Energy Committee. Both have been in the Senate for a number of years. So they are people that the CCA community has worked with. But so just wanted to mention that. No changes in the Assembly. Just a reminder that we work under a board-approved policy platform that has three pillars, three legs to the stool: accelerating deep decarbonization, promoting local development, and stabilizing community choice. So when we're engaging in particular on legislative matters, that policy platform really is our North Star. It's posted online on a web page. We monitor the bill introductions as they come in by ourselves and also collaboratively with Cal CCA. About 2,400 bills are introduced every year. Last year, we tracked and analyzed about 170. That includes both energy bills, but also general government bills that might be impacting the Brown Act or the Public Records Act, or the FPPC, Form 700 issues and things of that nature. And then staff working internally with subject matter experts and using the board policy. We are authorized under the board policy through the CEO to take positions on bills. I believe we took about 13 positions last year. We report those to the CAC and board, and those are also publicly posted online on our legislative website. So Jackson covered a little bit of what's happening or what we expect will happen this year. Karen mentioned that we were in Sacramento last week as part of a Cal CCA lobby day. So I want to tell you a little bit of what we talked about there last week. We focused on three core issues: educating on the power charge and difference adjustment, what it is, and what are some of the issues with it, in particular its variability from year to year. Jackson mentioned the new legislation that Cal CCA is sponsoring. That's something that we are excited about at the staff level. Let me just tell you a little bit why it's important to community power. It's really a simple bill. It's a process improvement bill. Every year, SDG&E makes around 4 filings at the Public Utilities Commission to determine the power charge and difference adjustment. Every time they do that, we have to go through a formal discovery process to obtain the data. And we basically have to go back and forth through lawyers about what data do we get access to, what's redacted, what's not. This bill simply says, whenever you make those 4 filings, just automatically hand over the data in whatever confidential format it needs to be handed over. We shouldn't be spending time fighting over it 4 times a year. So it's really a simple bill, but it's important to have that. So as Jackson said, we can kick the tires and look at it and make sure that those calculations are accurate. And hopefully we think that'll help us get a better understanding of what's driving these wild swings in PCIA. Also focused on the RA transactability, as Jackson covered, so I won't go over that anymore, but Will mentioned that Cal CCA's analysis does talk about that saving up to $179 million a year in costs. That's about $10 million a year for community power customers, roughly. It changes based on market conditions. And then finally, the importance of funding for local community-driven energy efficiency and electrification programs like those that will be through the San Diego Regional Energy Network. I believe you're getting some handouts too, so you'll get to see some of the handouts that we use in Sacramento. Those will also, for the public, for anyone tuning in, those will be posted online after this meeting as well. You'll see some nice stats overall about community power, how many programs we're operating, how many projects we have under contract, jobs created, things of that nature. We think it's really important to continue to educate lawmakers in particular. You know, there's lots of turnover both at the lawmaker level and at the staff level. So it's kind of a continuous process to really keep that communication and dialogue going as things evolve. So just a quick thing, I won't go through all these bills, but just wanted to highlight, really this brings up bills that we've seen introduced so far, really bring up 3 large issues that we expect the legislature to grapple with in the energy space this year. Number one, that's addressing large loads and data centers. I'm sure you guys are seeing this in the news. You know, there's not a lot of data center development in San Diego right now. It's fairly confined to the Bay Area region and a little bit in LA, but certainly there's a lot of discussion about how is that pushing up how much energy we need to be procuring. And so we've already seen 5 or 6 bills that have been introduced just on that topic. We think there'll be a significant source of discussion in the legislature this year. Jackson also mentioned affordability, very related to the large load data center issue. A local assembly member, Mrs. Borner, introduced a bill where she's going to try and cut electric rates by 25%. She's going to flesh that out. So we anticipate seeing more legislation like that, really pushing the boundaries on where we could be. And then finally, expect to see a number of bills on local DERs and local resource development. For example, there's legislation this year by Mr. Weiner from San Francisco that would eliminate some barriers to using balcony solar units, in particular for renters. So those are three tranches, three issue areas that we started to see really bill introductions pick up in, and something that we'll be tracking closely throughout the year. And then finally, just wanted to give a quick state budget update because that is often a big focal point in Sacramento. The governor released his state budget about a month ago, actually a little over a month ago. It projects multi-year, multi-billion-dollar deficits between $20 to $30 billion. So, Mr. Chair, you had asked about federal policy, and I'll make a connection there. State is in a really tough budget situation, not just in the current budget year, but in the next 3 budget years as well. So their ability to potentially backfill some of what's being cut at the federal level, I think is going to be really, really limited. And I think that'll be a really big discussion point in Sacramento. They probably have some bandwidth to make investments, and where are you going to make it across healthcare, across energy, across climate change, across social services. So they'll have some really hard choices to make themselves. There are a few energy proposals included in the governor's budget, including most notably over $320 million for public financing of transmission. So that can help bring down at a much lower cost investments in new transmission build out in California. And then something about $200 million also for a one-time new electric vehicle rebate program to replace, this is a replacement, to replace the federal tax incentive. So these are all issues that we are tracking. Obviously, the EV credit is important. We have a managed charging program, so EV rollout in San Diego is important also to the grid. So tracking these things are something part of we do day to day. The final budget will also include dozens of trailer bills. These are basically policy bills that support the budget. And so we also monitor and track that because oftentimes major policy decisions will be made alongside with the budget, which must be passed by June 15th. So that wraps up my legislative update. I think I'm going to hand it to Laura to cover some regulatory items, and I'll be here if there are any questions at the end.
Here. Moving on to power charge and difference adjustment, which I've already heard about a little bit this evening, but I'm going to continue the fun in the regulatory space. So quick reminder, in case you picked this up in the last 2 presentations or our last 2 speakers, but PCI is the rate making mechanism where IOUs like SCG&E recover their costs for long-term energy that they contracted for. And that has a direct impact on our rates. So moving to the regulatory space, last year the CPUC opened a proceeding to review the methodologies and processes of the PCIA, as well as the Energy Resource Recovery Account, which is where the investor-owned utilities recover PCIA costs. So the PCIA proceeding is broken into a few tracks, and there's been a lot of activity in the past few months. So track 1, which concluded last year, there's an active appeal in the California Court 3rd District of the CPUC decision that we got last year, which updated the methodology for the resource adequacy market price benchmark, as well as input. It's an input to the PCIA, and we argue that it constituted retroactive rate making. CalCCA also, related to that appeal, filed applications for rehearing for each of the IOU's ERA decisions, because that is where that change was implemented for our market pricing. So those processes are still ongoing. We're waiting on the outcomes of the appeal, as well as the applications for rehearing. Those are pending. We'll keep you posted. Meanwhile, the proceeding of the CPUC is moving on. In track 2, a scoping memo came out earlier this month. And so scoping memo sort of sets the issues as well as the schedule for that track of the proceeding. Originally, we thought this track was going to cover broader issues, but we have since learned that it's going to focus on a very narrow issue related to how pre-2019 banked renewable energy credits are valued in the PCIA. And we're going to obviously be involved in that alongside CalCCA to make sure that our customers are credited for the benefits for resource attributes that they have already paid for. And then a final decision on track 2 is expected in September of this year. And then track 3 is expected to kick off later this year. And that is where we hope we will get the chance to have a discussion about broader reforms to PCIA and ERA. So with that, we'll move on to something else. RP. So IRP integrated resource planning, a lot of activity there also. On January 14th, we got a proposed decision in that proceeding. So this proposed decision addresses a needs assessment that we received last year in September, which basically said there was a gap in the capacity that is required to meet reliability needs for the state. So there's a new procurement order, which is requiring 2,000 megawatts of capacity to come online by 2030 and 4,000 megawatts by 2032. And no more than half of that can currently come from storage resources. Community Power would be responsible for procuring 84 megawatts by 2030 and 168 by 2032 under this procurement order for a total of 252 megawatts. So CalCCA filed comments on this on February 6th, and CalCCA has recommended some changes to the final decision, including a reassessment of the second part of that procurement order, the tranche 2 needs to account for load forecast uncertainty and other potential changes to the needs assessment inputs. We also advocated for removing the 50% restriction on storage resources, as well as increasing compliance pathways that provide load serving entities more ways to cost effectively comply with the requirement without compromising reliability. Reply comments were filed earlier this week on the 11th, and the proposed decision could become final as soon as February 26th. So we're hoping for some changes, but I'm sure our next staff report will let you know the final outcome of that decision. Moving on to something totally unrelated. SDG&E has an application that they filed regarding Smart Meter 2.0. So they are seeking authority to recover $825 million in costs between 2024 and 2031 to replace their end-of-life Smart Meter 1.0 devices and implement other IT upgrades. Basically, in this application, they want to modernize and replace the existing advanced metering. So Smart Meter 2.0 devices will offer significant enhancements according to SDG&E, such as the ability to process and transmit data at much higher frequencies, enabling granular monitoring of electricity usage and grid performance, which may provide valuable insights that can provide the granular high-speed data necessary to manage local energy portfolios, customer programs, and decarbonization goals. Because these costs would be borne by all customers, it's recovered through distribution rates, means that CCA customers would be paying for this also. So this is a consequential proceeding for us as well as other serving entities, both in terms of affordability and on how these new metering capabilities are governed and shared to make sure that there's maximum ratepayer return on investment for all customers. So this, I think, is my little slide. We filed a protest along with Clean Energy Alliance to protest the application, and will be an active intervener throughout this proceeding to advocate for any policy outcomes tied to any approval associated with this request from SDG&E. Basically, we are saying that CCAs like Syndia Community Power and Clean Energy Alliance should have a data access parity, because we want to make sure that we're able to implement programs in a way that, you know, we have the same data that they do. We want to make sure that there's the ability to reduce costs for customers as well as increase grid reliability. So the application proposed to improve interval and near real-time data quality, but we're only going to see those benefits for all customers if we can access the data on the same terms as SDG&E bundle customers are able to. So there's not a lot of explanation in application from SDG right now on how SDG would plan to ensure open and timely access for CCAs. So we're concerned about a potential for information asymmetry, which could translate into SDG having an advantage in terms of customer engagement, analytics, program delivery, and load forecasting. So we think that what we're trying to get through this proceeding is explicit and enforceable commitments from SDG to make sure that we have near real-time equivalent data access for customers so that we can administer operations and have cutting-edge programs and not be disadvantaged in terms of the data we get versus what SDG has. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'll now be handing it over to Aisha on our team to round out the regulatory report.
Thanks, Laura. Good evening, everyone. So I have two regulatory updates for you tonight, both related to energy efficiency. The first one is germane to the general energy efficiency oversight proceeding, which is where the CPUC develops rules that govern all portfolio administrators, including San Diego Regional Energy Network. So I'm not going to go through the entirety of the proceeding schedule here, but I am wanting to highlight where we're currently at, which is this third row, which is weighing in on the staff proposal on viable electric alternatives policy. Before I dive into what that is, I just want to say that one of Community Power's board-approved policy priorities, which Patrick mentioned the policy platform earlier, is to equitably accelerate deep decarbonization, which of course includes electrification of buildings. So next slide, please. So one way we're moving this priority forward is through our comments on the viable electric alternative staff proposal. And the viable electric alternative staff proposal in plain speak is the CPUC's draft plan to phase out most natural gas incentives over the next 10 years. The proposal essentially details how the CPUC will determine if an electric appliance, also termed an electric measure, has more benefits compared to a gas one. And they're doing that through a cost-benefit methodology. So we filed comments in January on the proposal, and overall we're very supportive of the phase out of natural gas energy efficiency incentives, but I'm going to cover the 5 key arguments we made in comments that are geared towards refining the proposal. So number 1, the proposed cost benefit test does not fully account for benefits that matter most to equity and hard to reach customers, such as health improvements, safety, and long-term bill stability. It also relies on utility assumptions that may not reflect the realities in disadvantaged communities. Number 2, one-time electrification costs like upgrading a panel or wiring should not count against whether a single electric appliance is viable. As you know, these sorts of upgrades make it possible to add more electric appliances in the future and should be viewed as investments, not penalties in the form of costs. Third, the analysis should reflect real customer conditions and accurate rate projections. Many equity customers live in older, below-code homes, and state projections by the California Energy Commission show gas rates are expected to rise significantly. So those factors do change the long-term bill picture and need to be adequately accounted for in the cost-benefit methodology. Finally, my 5th point, or our 5th argument, is that the CPUC wanted to hear from parties whether it's suitable for portfolio administrators to implement refrigerant leak detection and recycling pilots. So we detail that some regional energy network programs are already successfully running these type of programs. So pilots should be allowed, but if a portfolio administrator deems it appropriate for their community, they should also be allowed to run a full-fledged refrigerant leak detection and recycling program. So overall, we believe the approach should align with state climate and equity goals and ensure local communities are not unintentionally disadvantaged. And in terms of next steps here, we're waiting on a decision which should come sometime this month or next month. Next slide. So I'll now cover the second regulatory update, and this one pertains to SDG&E's application to withdraw from their Regional Energy Efficiency Program Administration with the exception of their Regional Codes and Standards program. To tie this back to our policy platform, one of our priorities is to support initiatives that increase funding for energy efficiency and energy literacy services. As you may recall, SDG&E filed this application back in April 2025, and they justified the application based off of affordability claims primarily and poor performance of their portfolio, claiming that withdrawing from their regional energy efficiency programs would save ratepayers $300 million. And so now we're in the thick of the proceeding. We already filed briefs on legal permissibility of withdrawal, and now we're in the testimony phase of the proceeding that's addressing the policy and factual merits of the application. So next slide, please. So before I dive into the content of our testimony, I do want to be clear, we're not opposing SDG&E's withdrawal. Our priority is showing that regional energy efficiency is important for affordability, managing load growth, in that should SDG&E be allowed to withdraw, the CPUC should maintain funding so another portfolio administrator such as SDREN can expand to fill gaps and ensure continuity of service for San Diegans. So we filed our opening testimony on January 15th and are filing our rebuttal testimony on February 18th. And I'd like to share 6 key themes from the arguments and counter arguments from our testimony. Number 1, we state that the application's affordability claims are overstated and don't tell the full story. The analysis in the application downplays hundreds of millions of dollars in broader system benefits and also overlooks billions of dollars in long-term bill savings projected from SDG&E's energy efficiency programs. Our second key theme is when regional energy efficiency programs are evaluated fairly, they show strong results contrary to what the application indicates and what SDG&E stated in their opening testimony. So even using today's imperfect methods, which don't fully account for benefits like health, comfort, and job creation, the programs still deliver more benefits than they cost. But at the same time, the current portfolio performance evaluation methodology does have structural flaws. So we argue that it needs to be reformed before it's used by the CPUC to make funding decisions for future PAs such as SDREN who would want to fill gaps if SDG&E withdraws. There's been arguments by other parties that say this portfolio performance evaluation methodology should be relied on to determine if additional funding is granted. So moving on to our third theme from our testimony, there's still significant energy efficiency savings opportunity in the region, despite what SDG&E's application indicates. Electricity demand is expected to grow by about 15% by 2031 in the region, increasing the importance of local energy efficiency to keep bills stable and reduce strain on the grid. State studies also show there's meaningful cost-effective efficiency potential through at least 2037. Number 4, if SDG&E withdraws, the Commission must carefully consider the risks of underperformance and compliance gaps that could result from that withdrawal. So if SDG&E is allowed to withdraw, they intend to rely on statewide programs to meet their compliance requirement. But on the ground, realities reflect that actual savings are far lower than what's claimed in those statewide programs. And furthermore, if the CPUC doesn't have a plan to fund continuation of services, if SDG&E withdraws, our community would lose significant benefits. So beyond the risk to SDG&E of noncompliance and underperformance, there's of course very real tangible impacts that would accrue to San Diego if they do withdraw and there's not a plan in place to fund a new portfolio administrator or to allow a current portfolio administrator to expand its services. Number 5, some parties have argued that SDREN's programs are duplicative with SDG&E's offering, and that is grounds for withdrawal. And we disagree. Our programs were intentionally designed to complement SDG&E's portfolio, and we continuously work with SDG&E to prevent overlap. So to that point, overlap is not a reason to eliminate programs that are delivering value. Finally, energy efficiency should continue to evolve, such as, and when we say evolve, we mean integrate more load management programs as well as distributed energy resources program. SDG&E's opening testimony argued that those programs should be favored and energy efficiency doesn't provide value, so it should be set to the side. So just in sum, efficiency remains one of the most cost-effective tools for lowering bills and supporting grid reliability. And that concludes my overview of what we included in our opening testimony and what we'll include in our rebuttal testimony. And we still have a few milestones in the proceeding, including potential evidentiary hearings and briefs. But we are still on track to have a decision on SDG&E's withdrawal by this summer. And that concludes our department's presentation, and we can, I believe, move on to questions.
Thank you very much. Brief overview of all the important issues that are facing our organization. Sandra, do we have any public comments on this item?
Yeah.
Carrie?
One second, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would be this written comment that's submitted to.
Is he unmuted?
Oh, can I speak?
Mr.
Hello?
Saab, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, I don't think I need 3 minutes. I just want to commend San Diego Community Power for those comments ahead of the CPUC regarding SDG's potential withdrawal from its energy efficiency programs. I think it's really critical to maintain the importance of those energy efficiency programs. And even like the sort of basis of the argument seems dubious. It's kind of like saying a fire station's response times are bad, so abolish the fire department rather than figuring out how to improve the programs. So I just commend the SDCP for providing the commentary for ahead of the CPUC. Not sure what else can be done to strengthen this ahead of the CPUC in terms of, I think it's like a very like legal type of evidentiary based thing, but just appreciate the work doing there to ensure energy efficiency. So thank you.
Thanks for your comment. I'll turn it over to CAC members for comments and questions. Yes.
Sorry, asking kind of at large, not sure who would be the best person, but if I'm recollecting correctly, I believe Senator Padilla was also a key author to a number of the bills that were being followed last year, and he seems to be again this year. I was wondering if you all might be able to provide any additional comments as to, is this the kind of should we be expecting Senator Padilla to continue to be one of the key authors for these bills? Is this just kind of a saying of, I know that one of his bills is specific to data centers, which I know is a key theme specifically within his region. Is this kind of like an overlapping of priorities, or is this a long-term partnership? Or any other comments you might be able to share on that topic?
Yeah, obviously, again, Patrick Welch, Assistant Director of Legislative Affairs, thank you for the question. Obviously, can't speak on behalf of the senator. We have had conversations with him locally and in Sacramento. He was on the board of Community Power for a number of years, served as vice chair. So we see him as someone that is a champion of community choice aggregation. We did have a chance to connect with him last week and learn a little bit more about his interest in data centers. You may know that his Senate district also includes Imperial Valley, and they do have some data center developments going in there. So I think there's some background to that as to why he's particularly interested in that. He does seem to be someone who with a lot of knowledge and interest in energy issues and making sure that his community's voice, his constituents' voice are represented in those decisions in Sacramento.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, thank you, Laura, Patrick, and Aisha for your presentation, excellent presentation to catch us up on what's going on in Sacramento and beyond. This is a receive and file item, and no further action is needed. It's grand. Moving on to item 7, Community Clean Energy Grants Update. Before we begin, are there any members who need to recuse themselves due to a potential conflict of interest? Sarah?
I'll plan to recuse myself in case Hammond Climate Solutions Foundation is applying.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Okay. I will now turn it over to Leo Nales Crespo. are part of your presentation.
Thank you. So my name is Crespo, Senior Community Engagement Manager here at Community Power, wearing my Community Clean Energy Grants hat. And as part of this informational update, we're excited to share more detail about our 2026 Community Clean Energy Grants application and process, which launched on February 2nd. As you may recall, this grant opportunity is a partnership between Community Power, the San Diego Foundation, and Calpine Community Energy. It was first launched in 2023 and expanded in 2024 to include Calpine, which provides operational support and additional community investment. To date, over $2.5 million has already been invested in local clean energy and green workforce projects across San Diego County. Now, this grant supports new and existing projects that move communities toward a healthier, more sustainable clean energy future. Projects should deliver real economic, environmental, and health benefits to Community Power customers. And this cycle will award over $750,000, with grants ranging from $25,000 to $150,000, depending on the funding track. All grant funds must be expended within 12 months of the award being received. Now, our funding priorities have not changed. We're looking for projects that increase energy literacy for Community Power customers, support energy-focused education, especially for youth, improve air quality through electrification, create clean energy workforce pathways, and strengthen energy resilience, helping communities to prepare for and recover from energy disruptions. Because these projects can look very different in scope and scale, we've structured this year's funding into two distinct tracks, and that's intentional. As our grant program has grown, we've learned that infrastructure projects and programming projects are fundamentally different in how they're designed, funded, and implemented. So by introducing a two-track model with one track now solely focused on infrastructure, we more clearly define what strong infrastructure projects look like and evaluate them based on long-term system impact, technical feasibility, and resilience benefits. This approach also directly supports our board-approved goal to develop 1 gigawatt of local renewable and clean energy capacity by 2035, including 300 megawatts of distributed energy resources enabled by Community Power programs. Now, for track one, the clean energy infrastructure, we will have grants ranging from $50,000 to $150,000. Examples of eligible track one projects include, but are not limited to, the installation of distributed energy resources that support energy resiliency and or provide other broad customer benefits, such as distributed solar and storage, electric vehicles and EV charging stations, and grid interactive buildings such as community resilience hubs that create energy cost reductions and provide responsive services to communities during power outages. When applicable, projects will be strongly encouraged to enroll grant-funded distributed energy resources into Community Power's virtual power plant. Track two, on the other hand, includes clean energy programming, and grants will range from $25,000 to $50,000. Examples of eligible track two programming include, but are not limited to, workforce development programs that support careers in the clean energy industry, such as jobs and education to maintain, say, electric vehicles or install solar panels. Energy literacy programming in communities of concern that encourages adoption of clean energy technologies and adoption of clean energy curriculum in K-12 focused programming. Applicants must clearly align their proposal with one track only. In terms of eligibility, eligible applicants include 501c3 nonprofits and other tax-exempt entities like public agencies, as well as higher education institutions. And projects must serve Community Power communities, and applicants should demonstrate experience serving communities of concern when applicable. In terms of timeline and review process, applications were launched earlier this month and are due March 6, 2026 at 5 p.m. And they must be submitted through Foundation, which is the foundation's platform for submitting all these applications. They will be reviewed by a joint evaluation committee from all three partners that I mentioned at the very beginning. And we will follow a strict conflict of interest and scoring guidelines that are publicly available through our website as well as the foundations. Now, we are providing support for applicants as well as part of the criteria, which you can see in here. And part of what that application and technical assistance will look like is you can reach out directly to the foundation to schedule an appointment. And again, if you have a clean infrastructure project, we strongly encourage potential applicants to request support from Community Power so that we're able to talk through some of those technical bits and pieces. The evaluation criteria in here is in 4 parts, including funding priority alignment, making sure that there's regional environmental impact. Moving right along, there's feasibility and readiness. So making sure that these projects, especially within the infrastructure track, are shovel ready. And last but certainly not least, community served, making sure that we're, for example, if a project identifies barriers to adoption, that makes it a little bit more competitive. We provide a little bit more guidance as part of the full criteria, which again is on our website. As I mentioned, we'd love to connect with potential applicants. And since the launch, the public affairs team has conducted targeted outreach on the grants by providing a live and recorded webinar to potential applicants, presentations and announcement at community collaboratives, groups, chambers, and member agencies. We reached out with information to previous applicants, whether they were successful or not, as well as our Power Network coalition of community partners, and increasing our educational efforts over social media. You may have seen a video with me or two. Now, at this point, we've covered the structure of the 2026 grant so that you're able to continue to share this opportunity with your communities. We really value your partnership as a way to augment our outreach efforts. In the coming weeks, you will also receive the 2024 Community Clean Energy Grants Impact Report, which will provide you with a more holistic view of what this type of funding opportunity has funded in the past. But sometimes the most helpful way to understand a funding opportunity is to hear directly from those who've been through it. So we'd love for you to hear what it looks like in action. So we're excited today to welcome 2 previous grantees who will share their project journey, including what they proposed, how their project has progressed, lessons learned along the way, and the impact that they're already seeing in their community. Their experiences really bring this work to life, and I'm so excited that you get to hear it directly from them. So with that, I'll turn it over to our grantees to share more about their projects, beginning with Brooke Trisdale, representing the Songpost Co-op Market, and then transitioning to Magara Wilson, representing San Diego 350, along with program participants Azul Bay and Frida Brigada.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here to speak about this tonight. And if you had told me 6 years ago that I would be talking about a co-op market to this group, I wouldn't have believed it because I didn't really know what a co-op was, and now I feel pretty well versed in it. So a couple facts about our store. It's really more than a store. So I wrote on here that we have 1,500, well, more than 1,500 invested households and businesses. That's a one-time $200 ownership purchase, and then you're part owner of the store. But really, it is so much more than these facts. We've created 25 new jobs, generate about $6.5 million in the economy is projection. It's got to focus on sustainability, reduced waste, food packaging, reduced miles driven, and supporting local small businesses, and really focusing on sustainable agriculture practices. So why a co-op? This is a picture of most of our board members on opening day, and we were beyond excited. This has been 11 years, 10 years in the making, really. And Imperial Beach is it's a food swamp, right? More than a food desert, because we have like 42 fast food and liquor stores and not one full service grocery store. So we have a discount grocery outlet, we have a Mexican market, and those are great for certain things, but we deserve a full service grocery store in our community. I'm really proud to say that Imperial Beach is the first co-op to open in a predominantly Latino community. There's been a recent resurgence of Black-led co-ops, but we are the first to open in a predominantly Latino community, and second in San Diego County, with Peoples in Ocean Beach being the other one that's been around for more than 50 years. So our clean energy grant was transformational for our store. We were able to purchase the equipment that you see listed, including bike racks to support active transportation. And I just want to tell a quick story about that. On opening day, this plaza that we're in didn't have any bike racks, and we were able to put them in. And someone came up to me and I'd never met her before. Her name was Allie. I've seen her at the store 3 times since. She was so excited, and she has a road bike, but she's like, you have bike racks. I'm going to buy a cruiser. I live really close. I want to just ride my bike. I'm going to look on Craigslist. I'm going to look on Facebook Marketplace. I'm just going to get a cruiser and start riding my bike to the store. So that was really cool, but that was just an instant thought that she had. So what we've been able to accomplish so far is that we opened an all-electric store. And this is some of the equipment that we're using every day for the hot food bar, the salad bar, the grab-and-go prepared food section, and the warmer for the rotisserie chickens. And we've also shared our clean energy messaging in dozens of pre-opening tours for donors, owners, and the general public. As well as back in October, we held a nutrition class that was like healthy habits around the holidays. This is one of the coolers that we were able to purchase with the grant. And some of our lessons learned are that electrification works beautifully in commercial kitchens. And there's really been a sense of pride in the community. The board has been working on this since 2016, and now that it's here, I feel like I hear people that I've never seen at a Suncoast event saying things like, our store this, and we got this, and did you see what we have now? And that's been really very cool to see. So our next steps for the grant, we're going to move from the infrastructure, getting the equipment in place, to active education. So we're going to have some tours of the store, some healthy cooking demos. There were a flurry of emails about that today. We're going to be hosting a sustainability fair and writing some clean energy newsletter articles. And why this matters in Imperial Beach, we're in the news a lot, right? And not always for things that can be a source of pride for us. And this store is a huge point of pride. I myself am not really into cooking or grocery shopping. That's not my thing, but I've worked on this for 5 years now, in addition to my full-time job and my other volunteer responsibilities, because I wanted our town to have this kind of store. And now we do, and it's been incredible. We opened on January 31st, and someone from my house has been there every single day since it opened. And I don't see that slowing down. It's really cool to see other community members in there and just kind of hear the chatter. Like I said, I didn't know about co-ops before, but I really believed in the others on the board who I didn't know before this. But they had a vision, they knew what they were going for, and now that it's here, everybody is behind it and believing in it. So I just want to say thank you so much. These are some images inside the store. You can see like the Suncoast mural. That's really a huge point of pride for IB. Then our bulk bins. We've got bulk spices as well, and coffee, and all kinds of cool stuff in there. So I hope that you'll all come check it out, because everyone can shop there. We'd love to have you.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank
Wow.
you.
For the whole community. Thank you. Okay, thank you. See this paper here.
Hello, everyone. We are honored to be here, and we are here to talk about the South Bay Clean Energy Education Program that we have been working on this year, which was founded by SCP and San Diego Foundation. And to tell you a little bit of myself, my name is Frida Vergara.
I'm a senior at Bonita Vista High School and a paid intern working on this program. It's fine. I wanted to share with you guys why I got interested in working through this program. And it's because I grew up between the border of Tijuana and Chula Vista. I grew up in Tijuana, but I was born in Chula Vista. And I have seen how climate injustice shows up in our daily lives, from the pollution of maquiladoras to littering and the lack of waste education that I had back home. This is why I'm very passionate about working through this program that helps a lot of high schoolers to have this type of education. And I basically grew up surrounded by practices that harmed our environment. And also, after I immigrated to the US, I realized the limited education of environmental awareness that I had back at Tijuana. And with that came the heavy feeling of anxiety, like my future was being stripped away from my hands, and that I just wasn't sure what to do. That's why this feeling pushed me to join San Diego 350. And it has been an honor for me to join the South Bay Clean Energy Program and engage with passionate students that also care about the same values that I do and that want to contribute to their education on clean energy that will impact the quality of our future. And I'll pass it to you, Azul.
Okay, thank you, Frida. So to introduce myself, my name is Azul Bay. I am a senior at Sweetwater High School and also a paid intern working for the program. So my passion for climate justice was developed at a very early age. If you went to school with me in elementary school, you would see that I would always choose to stay in the back of the line to pick up trash here and there so that I wasn't disturbing anyone. And doing this, I saw other classmates that wanted to join my effort. And so they reassured me that there are others that continue to carry like the love for their environment and for future generations. As I carried on to my academic career in high school, I acknowledged that I still kept a strong hold for my desire for a cleaner and healthier environment. I used this as a fuel to start up my own club during my junior year called Suhai Eco Club, where students can come together for trash pickup and across campus, all while gaining valuable experience with our current project of establishing our own school garden. Starting Suhai Eagle Club had granted me many opportunities, the biggest one being connected with San Diego 350. As soon as my advisor mentioned the position of a South Bay intern, I jumped at the chance to further my work of taking action against climate change and climate injustice. Okay, so a little bit about who we are. San Diego 350 is a local climate action nonprofit that works to prevent the worst impacts of climate change and climate injustice through education and outreach, public policy advocacy, and mobilizing people to take action. Our youth program is called Youth for Climate and is youth-led. We have over 50 active students, student interns, and volunteers from across San Diego County, with a lot located in South Bay, San Diego. We plan annual events like Youth for Climate Summit coming up in March, do community outreach, work on local and state climate legislation and policies, pass electrification resolutions at school, and do student education and even design and implement curriculum like we're doing with this program.
Thank you, Azul. Okay, so why this program? We choose to work with San Diego 350 through the South Bay San Diego because our communities often face higher rates of pollution, air pollution specifically, and climate impacts than other parts of San Diego, like you see in this demographic here. Our communities, like his National City and Chula Vista, also have a higher percentage of people of color that tend to be underserved and especially can benefit from connections to clean energy careers. That's why we chose to have youth interns that collaborate with teachers on curriculums and leading other parts of this program, because we believe that our input is heavily valuable to having the students' perspective on a variety of subjects, so that clean energy and also clean careers are talked about throughout school, not just in science classes, but also hands-on experience. And to Sue.
Thank you. So we are very much on track with achieving our goals with the program so far. Our goals for year one of the program were to build the knowledge and experience of interdisciplinary cohort of 9 teachers in clean energy, energy efficiency, sustainability, and resilience, and create curricular, lesson plans, and activities tailored to diverse courses and needs for the student. And our year 2 goals are to educate 1,800 students at 3 South Bay high schools through a variety of approaches about clean energy. With 3 high school interns, engage about 2,000 community members through tabling, community presentations, and students talking to their families, and produce an evaluation of the program and replica package of resources and distribute them to regional educators via our partners.
Okay, we have made a lot of progress so far on this program. That's why we are very excited to show you guys that on year 1, first year, we hired a high school intern, Daniel Hernandez, who worked with leaders and students to develop this curriculum and basically boosting it up. We selected 9 interdisciplinary teachers and hosted a kickoff event and teacher training where students and teachers starting to plan curriculum ideas, brainstorm on how students are being the most part of these types of curriculums. And then throughout the rest of the year, we created multiple curriculum drafts and got feedback from students, which is a key part. Also from, not just from students, but also from teachers and our program partners, including California Global Education Project. Now, on year 2, we hired 3 high school interns, 1 from each school, which our teachers have been piloting their curriculums in classrooms, and we have been gathering survey results with a survey that the interns co-designed. We are also coordinating clean energy career guest speakers to come to our school and present to more students if they're interested in that aspect. Also throughout community events, both years we have been involving students at our school in the process, and they have attended to these events to spread more information about what we're doing. And a lot of them have showed a lot of interest in them, which is something that we're really proud of. Personally, I have been working with 3 teachers at my school that are implementing this clean energy curriculum in their classrooms. Like Asu mentioned, I also have a club at my school where students and I work on these curriculums, specifically providing feedback to the teachers, making the classes more interesting and also more interactive for students to participate in. And something that I learned is that some adults only think what they can teach us, like students, or at least initially, but they don't sit and think about what students can teach them too. And I believe that what we have to say is very important, and the way that the classrooms are conducted is heavily important on how we can develop knowledge through that and possibly be part of these careers. And that's how students also learn a lot from the teachers that way. And yes, I'll pass it to Azul.
Thank you. So similar to Frida, I also work alongside three of my teachers at Sweetwater High School, scheduling check-ins and just overall being a helping hand to introduce clean energy curriculums to my classmates to provide clarity for possible career passions. Working in this position, I've gained more of an understanding that a group effort with a common goal, common strategy will always be strong enough to establish change. And I will pass it on to Frida.
Thank you, Azul. So to talk more about the next steps as we finish out the program is having our clean energy career guest speaker series at our schools. The teachers will finish plotting their curriculum in their classrooms, and we as students, we will review the feedback from the teachers and also not just from teachers, but also from students and partners that will make final edits to the curriculum. And lastly, we will package the curriculum and distribute it to other teachers in schools from San Diego. This is a very key part.
So lastly, here are some testimonials from a teacher and a student involved in the program. It is not about us, it's about students taking the lead and becoming advocates. We can equip them with not just knowledge, but the ability to control the future of their environment. That is from Mrs. Eckstein, an AP Environmental Science teacher. And then, as a sophomore, I want people to realize that no matter what grade you're in or how old you are, we can all learn and understand what's going on around us. This program has been an opportunity to express my concerns about the climate crisis and actually help out my community by giving input in the curriculum. From Itzel Ramirez, Bonita Vista student. Thank you so much for your time, and please let us know if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Frida. Thank you, Azul. Hang on right there. Sandra, is there any public comment? We don't have any. Okay. From our CAC members, do you have some questions or comments?
Do you get pushback from your fellow students that this is nerdy or stupid or whatever? Or do you, they generally kind of accepting of the information that you're providing them?
I think it's more of half and half. I think like half of like one side of the school might not see like the importance of it and they might just not care. But the other half, I think they truly support. I mean, they always come and ask questions. They like to like engage in like what's going on. And so I think they very much do support. But it really depends on like what side you're talking to.
Great presentation by you too.
Thank you. I also wanted to add on to your question. For my school, like Azul said, there's a wide variety of students that think the same way of me. And I think I can attribute it to that most of students have experienced a lot of climate disasters, such as floods, fires, wildfires, and that has made them also have the same feeling of anxiety that I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. The Border 2 fires, which happened earlier in the year, was a lot of students from my school were very impacted by it, and we were still forced to go to school that day. Like the school didn't close, and they provided like very few section of masks for students, and a lot of them have asthma, they have respiratory problems, and through those discrepancies, I can also emphasize that they also have a lot of worries about their future. Some of them do, and some of them care about other types of problems, social problems that we are facing. And it's hard for us, because some of us think that we cannot do much, but the reality is that we are the future of the country. And in the future, we will face the most of pollution, even though we are the least contributors to that. And we still want to show up and raise our voices and raise awareness throughout our communities. And that's why we are very interested in this.
Bravo. Here. Very good. Well, thank you for your presentation. And I'm a past supporter of Sandy with 350. I'm active as I was before. I'm a Stu High grad of 71. I'm coming. And this is my contact information. I've made presentations at Springwater. I've been at the Benita High School. If any of your teachers want me to come and talk on, here's a tapping on the electric vehicle. That's one of my specialties. And clean energy. I'm glad to come and just share it. Have them give me a call.
Thank you. We appreciate this.
And I wanted to thank the Suncoast for putting some bicycle racks. This Saturday I'll be riding by there. I'm gonna talk to my friends and stop you by.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It gives me, it feels really gratifying that Community Power has invested in the community and we're seeing the results. And the young leaders that are emerging from the South Bay are certainly going to be the hope for our climate and our environment. So thank you so much.
The pleasure is ours.
Thank you so much.
I encourage everyone to make a visit to Suncoast Co-op in the next month and support. So this is a receive and file item and no further action is needed. We will now move on to item 9. Update on 2026 rates adjustment.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Aaron. Happy to be back. I'm here to provide an update on 2026 rates that were adopted by the board on January 15th. So just to continue along the theme of community, really here is a focus on impacts of our rates to the community and to the customer. So that's going to be the theme here. A few different ways to slice and dice this, to look at it. Some of these rate objectives here are directly tied to Community Power's mission and vision. Some are self-explanatory, like simplicity, transparency, as well as competitiveness, bring in immediate impacts, immediate relief as much as we can. And the other piece here, cost of service, cost of recovery is really foundational for viability of the organization so we can provide long-term impacts. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process first on setting these rates, talk about the rates that were adopted by the board, and look at the impacts from the organization point of view to how to provide those longer term impacts to the community, to the customer that I just described. And then directly, since all of you are customers to Community Power and a lot of our staff are customers as well, taking a look at what are the actual value proposition from this rate adjustment. We always have the slide up. It's a simple equation. How we really come up with our rates is first we model our costs to operate and run the organization. We take a look at different scenarios in terms of discounts that we can provide in our rates and what does that equal to in terms of revenue. We compare the cost, we compare the revenue, we model that, we take a look at the difference, which is the net margin. And from there, we just use different scenario analysis and really we set up our rates. The revenue that we collect is the rates. We also have to account for the power charge and difference adjustment that we've talked about twice today, and then the franchise fee, both are pass-throughs. And after that, we go back and reassess the competitiveness to San Diego Gas Electric's bundle rates. Relatively simple in terms of the process. Another reminder here, why do we have 3 sets of rates? Really to account for the 3 sets of vintage years of PCIA to provide, the same value prop here as an illustrative example, 4% discount compared to San Diego Gas and Electric's default product. Since we have to take into account the PCIA, which is different between the 3 vintage years, franchise fee is the same. That's why we have to calculate 3 sets of rates in terms of collecting. So we presented 3 scenarios to the board this year. Okay, going down and across the table, we have scenario 1, conservative in terms of the discount. Scenario 2, which is the staff recommended balance option. And then the last scenario is uncertain in terms of market uncertainty, market volatility. Right. Going down the table, power on in the conservative scenario, 3% discount, moving to 4%, 5%. And then power base is 10% across all 3 scenarios. You also see the net revenue forecast here for calendar year 2026, operating expenses for both energy, non-energy, as well as the net operating margin. Okay. The really kind of high level takeaway here is those 3 last line items, right? Focusing on customer affordability, so maximizing the discount. Does the scenario provide the ability to maintain and sustain our reserves that we revised in December, and do these scenarios in terms of the financial impacts meet credit rating metrics? And the balance scenario that staff recommended and the board adopted is really the Goldilocks scenario that meets all. So like I said before, let's take a look at it from the organization's point of view in terms of how these rate adjustment impacts the finances for 2026. We've gone through this slide when, if you remember, the finance team, Tim Lamont, presented a deep dive on the PCIA. I don't think we need to go through that extensively, but the takeaway here is that the PCIA, as well as the market price benchmark volatility, is driving the largest risk to the organization. Okay, 420 million is the estimate at that time. So it's our biggest risk. Here is additional look at it in terms of illustrative example. PG&E did have a PCIA snapback because market prices dropped. We didn't see that, fortunately, as much in terms of SDG's territory. But what we modeled here is that what would happen if that snapback in PG&E's territory, which occurred in January, happened here, plus, uncollectibles, participation rates, uncollectibles increased, participation rate dropped, what that would mean for community power, right? So what it really shows here as a illustrative example, as a high level estimate, our reserves would drop to 99-day cash on hand. And what we are trying to aim for, sustain, and maintain is that 180 to 270-day range. So it's a huge drop. So we're really the Goldilocks scenario where we're not pushing for a 10% discount, for example, on power on, is really to account for something like this. There's additional uncertainty and volatility in terms of rate structural changes. I've presented on these items in November, but just kind of as a repeat, the first item is already effective on the 1/1/2026 rate change. Okay, so there's a seasonality adjustment for residential rates that happened. In terms of the overall impact, it's a revenue decrease for community power. The second and the third items are anticipated to take place on April 1st. We haven't seen the filing yet. Filing should be coming out early March. Those two will encompass the time of use super off-peak expansion. Also a overall high-level estimate revenue decrease for community power. And then the last item is creation of a new medium commercial customer class. That one impacts are unknown until the actual filing comes out in terms of what the actual rates are. Then we can estimate the revenue impact. Overall, the first two great for customers, but for the organization, it's pointing towards a revenue decrease. So really accounting for this, as well as market volatility, PCI uncertainty, all of that. Balancing that with what we are able to do in terms of the greatest discount are able to offer. This table gonna take some time to walk through it. It's a little bit complicated, but it compares what rates and bills are in terms of the adopted rates for 2026 compared to the 10/1/2025 latest rates for community power as well as for SDG&E. Okay. I'm going to focus on the third column, power base. Just using that as an example. So going down that column, power base is at a 45% RPS, renewable portfolio content, discount 10%. So here, if you take a look, the generation from 2025 to 2026 is a decrease of roughly $16 for the generation. But you have the PCIA pretty much offsetting that decrease. Right? So I think we talked in November that for 2025, PCIA was a credit. It was negative, so it was a credit, and now it's back to being a charge. So that's why here you see that offsetting kind of friction between the PCI and the generation. Franchise fee with the 10% discount, let's call it roughly a wash, 8 cents. Change in delivery, $8.27 increase. Delivery rates continue to go up from SDG&E side. And that's across the board, right? Uniform for all products for SDG&E and for community power. So change in total monthly generation, the portion that we can control, back to the earlier kind of discussion regarding the bifurcation between generation and delivery. What we can control for power base on a monthly bill average, the customer is saving 66 cents. But for delivery, their bills continue to go up, $8.27. Overall change total roughly $9. For power on, the generation savings are much larger compared to power base. But the delivery monthly charge is pretty much the same. And this is for a typical residential. So speaking about power base in terms of process, right? Power base is community power's most affordable option. It was adopted in 2024, 10% less expensive in terms of the 2026 rate adjustment. And since its inception, power base has been capped at 50% of community power's customer load. At that time, when power base was adopted by the board, that what staff recommended and the board adopted was that when power base reaches 10% participation, staff will return to the board and kind of go back with observations in terms of, do we need to change the cap, customer feedback, as well as recommended next steps. So for this rate setting, board adopted staff's recommendation to reduce that trigger to 5%. Because what we're seeing is that a lot of customers that are moving from power on to power base are not residential customers. That cap is being used by commercial customers. And this product is originally really aimed to provide relief to residential customers and potentially small commercial customers, right? So the board adopted to reduce that trigger to 5%. Right now, we are at 1.5%. So there's still room in terms of meeting the cap, as well as staff also will conduct a targeted marketing campaign to really reach out to those customers that need this product, need this service. Here is a different take. Earlier, we were comparing 2025 to 2026 rates. Here, we're just comparing SDG&E's current rate as of 1/1/2026 to Community Power's different products, Power Base, Power On, and then Power 100. So Power 100 has a premium of 1 cent per kilowatt hour. That hasn't changed, okay, for this rate adjustment. We left it as it is, no change there. And for this, also a residential customer bill, you can kind of take a look at the breakdown in terms of dollars on a monthly basis, generation, PCIA, franchise fee, and so on. Right? So over here, Power Base to SDG&E, 9.25% discount. Power On to SDG&E, 3.5% discount. Here we have the same for small commercial, same format. Larger numbers get a little bit larger, and then numbers get much larger for a medium large commercial. But overall, consistent in terms of 10% discount generation to generation between Power Base, SDG&E, and then 4% discount generation to generation Power On, SDG. So let me summarize, and the takeaway here is, so the board adopted Community Power's deepest discount since we've been in operations for 5 years, with a 4% value drop for Power Base, for Power On, and 10% for Power Base. And all of our products have higher renewable content compared to SDG&E, even Power Base. And really, this rate adjustment that the board adopted balances maximizing customer affordability, as well as reducing bill impacts, as well as sustaining financial viability to really provide longer-term affordability. Prepares for market fluctuations, for unforeseen risks. And the last item is that the board also adopted the recommendation that staff will return to the board when Power Base adoption is at the 5% of total customer load, with customer feedback, observations, and recommended next steps. So that concludes my presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Sandra, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Okay. Just to clarify, SDG&E often changes their rate mid-year, especially for summer. Is that true?
There will be a April 1st rate change.
Okay, but San Diego Community Power, that rate is going to stay the same, the 4% discount. We're not going to change our rates April 1st or in the summer.
So we will be reviewing SDG&E's March 1st filing first,
Okay.
to see if there's any rate structural changes.
Oh, that are caused by their
Yeah,
additional
right,
costs.
the medium commercial class. If there is that, then we will review, evaluate, and then determine.
But our goal is to stabilize the rate throughout the year if
As
possible.
much as possible.
Yeah, as much as possible. Okay, thanks for that clarification. Yes, Professor Anderson.
I keep wondering why SDG doesn't engage in predatory pricing. They're a branch of a giant firm, Sempra Energy. Why don't they just cut their rates super low and try to go head to head with us, put you out of business? Is there, did they just not want to be in the generation business at all anymore?
I can't speak to their practice, but what I do know is that they are regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, right? So their rate setting process goes through that process where different
So-
interveners do participate.
The PUC, in effect, then prevents them from doing that kind of predatory pricing.
That's my.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Superintendent Emerson.
Yes, can you go over the ECO rates, the day cash on hand? I saw 99 days and I saw 225, 270. I think I lost. Where are we right now?
I will have to get back to you on that. I will have to.
But I mean, roughly, where are we close to the 225 or close to the 99?
I can answer, I can take that one, Aaron. Right now, we are very close, to hitting, that target range between 180 days and 225. So we need,
180 to 220.
yes, so the 99 days cash on hand that you observed, in the presentation was what would potentially happen under a stress test if we had a PCIA swing similar to what we've seen in PG and E.
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez. A related question, and kind of related to your question too, Chair, regarding the reserves. The report under financial considerations mentions that the reserves will give Community Power the ability to better stabilize its rates for customers to mitigate unplanned events. So kind of a two-part question. How does that work in the absence of the rate stabilization plan that we talked about last year? And the second part is how are we looking to get rate stabilization plan considered?
I can combine the responses of both of those answers. One, we're actively working on the rate stabilization policy, so we're looking to bring that forward as soon as possible. So that should, address both that gap. When we presented the financial reserve revision in December, we told the board that we will come back with the reserve policy in Q1 of 2026. So we're working.
Okay. So in other words, meeting our new reserve goal will enable our organization to then have a policy that will help stabilize the rates for our customers. Okay. Yes. Please.
Aaron, love the presentation. I was wondering if you might be able to go back to your very first slide that had the color coordinated outline of the different variables taken into consideration. So I had like equity, all those items. I was just wondering if you might be able to speak to that. Yes, thank you so much. Is this a weighted infographic? Is it equal parts? Is there a magic formula, or are these just general thought buckets that that SDCP takes into consideration in rate generation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. These are general criteria of our rate setting, rate adoption, rate development policy. They're not weighted. They are itemized in the policy, but I don't think that's the order of priorities.
Great.
Right? These shift, and really rate making is an art as well as a science. And the art here is to try to hit all these as much.
That's mostly what I figured, but it's always a nice reminder to hear it from you directly. So
Yeah, and these are consistent with kind of industry-wide rate setting policy objectives.
And very much appreciative of the art that you created for us. Very much aware that I would have zero understanding of how to create it. So thank you for guiding us through that.
No, it's definitely a team effort. Appreciate the team.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. This is a receive and file item and no further action is needed. Let's move on to item 10. Item 10. So I will turn it over to the program staff. Report on the San Diego Regional Energy Network, SDRAN update. Thank you, Colin and Gina, for hanging out.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, I feel obligated to make a joke about saving the best for last. But clearly, the high school students and Suncoast for the best presentation day. Really happy to see them here today. Thank you, Zeal Miles, for making time for them. Thank you all for being here for a longer meeting. It makes our work that much more meaningful when we get to hear it from the people who benefit. So I'm going to be very quick in my intro. I'm joined by Sheena Tran. She oversees the REN. She's our resident expert, staff expert on the Public Utilities Commission and energy efficiency and where those things come together. So I'll be quick in my intro and then I'll pass it to Sheena. And then we'll both be here to answer questions if there are any. Real quick background, the San Diego Regional Energy Network, as you all know, we presented before. This is a suite of energy efficiency programs funded by the Public Purpose Charge. $124 million is allocated to the region. We partnered with the County of San Diego. We're joined here by our partners. Thank you, Ricky, for being here. Ricky and his team at the county are partners of ours. We oversee and administer the REN. Community Power takes a lot of the burden as the lead portfolio administrator as far as contracting with vendors, regulatory and kind of financial obligations, but it's very much a partnership with the county. We were approved way back in August, believe it or not, of 2024. We've been working hard and we're happy to tell you about programs coming up soon. 2025 really has been it's behind us now, the year of procurement. As a public agency, we make sure we have a diligent process to make sure there's fair and equal access to administer these programs that we're running. That takes time, but we feel good about where we landed. We've awarded 8 of our 10 contracts to program administrators. We actually have 12 total because we have an overall administration contract as well as a marketing communication contractor firm that's supporting us. We released those solicitations in phases, so it's not to overwhelm Sheena and her team, Ruby and her team, and our procurement team. So you'll hear about the phased launch of programs in a second, and that kind of mirrors the phased RFP that we processed and went through. And I told you I would be brief, and here I am, being brief. I'm going to pass it to Sheena.
Good evening. My name is Sheena Tran, Associate Director of Programs, and as Colin said, I have the responsibility of overseeing our SDRAN admin and program operations. It's been a few months since our last presentation introducing the 10 programs, and I'm happy to be back to bring you this update. I'll be covering the program launch schedule, followed by an update on the SDRAN Advisory Committee, and lastly on the business plan application. So I'll start with going over the program launch schedule, which is broken out by the 4 sectors. And to provide a definition of what we mean by program launch, this refers to when a program is open for customer enrollment. So prior to a program being open for there are a number of steps and administrative activities that staff alongside the third-party implementers take to ensure that we have the structure and documents in place to implement the program. So some examples of these activities are filing the implementation plans with the California Public Utilities Commission, finalizing our work plans and project schedules, developing outreach strategy plans, and conducting needs assessments and developing participations. So on this slide, you'll see the 3 SDRAN cross-cutting programs, which includes our 2 workforce programs, one serving high school students and the other serving the adult workforce, both with the objective of providing training, support, and pathways to clean energy careers. There's also one code and standards program where we assist local governments and leverage energy code coach services with the goal of enhancing compliance with existing codes and developing ordinances that surpass statewide minimum requirements. These 3 programs are scheduled to launch this quarter in Q1 over the next month and a half. These here are 2 public sector programs that are scheduled to launch in Q2 of this year. Each program serves, both programs, serve public agencies and tribal governments, with one of the programs specifically designed to serve tribes. The programs offer technical assistance and funding for energy savings measures and projects. This shows our two residential programs, both of which are scheduled to launch in Q2 of this year. One program serves single-family owners and renters, while the other serves multifamily building owners and tenants. Both programs offer technical assistance, support in navigating other programs available in the region, and offer no to low-cost energy-saving measure installations. For the last program slide, this shows the commercial sector programs, which consists of 3 programs targeting small to medium-sized businesses. These programs will be launching in Q2 and Q3 of this year. And to provide a brief summary of the programs here, the Efficient Refrigeration Program serves small grocers and food service businesses, providing refrigeration upgrades. The Market Access Program delivers peak demand reductions through measure installations and performance-based incentives. And the last one, Small to Medium Business Coach, offers energy-saving measures and support in navigating available programs in the region. That wraps up the update of when programs will be launching throughout this year, which we are very excited about. Next, I'd like to provide an update on the SD-REN Advisory Committee. As you saw on the first slide of the presentation describing the SD-REN governance structure, the Advisory Committee is an important component of it, and it has the primary role of providing advisement on outreach and implementation to ensure our programs are reaching the intended target audience, and also to spread awareness of program availability and their benefits. So the committee will be made up of 19 members from local and regional governments, nonprofits, public, trade, and community-based organizations that have a diverse range of expertise and experience. The goal for the committee is to reflect a broad cross-section of the region and include representation of community interests in each of the 5 County of San Diego Board of Supervisor districts. In 2024, after submitting our application to form SD-REN, we convened 9 stakeholders with a regional or multi-jurisdictional footprint to provide advisement on the structure, functionality, and operation of the advisory committee. So this group of inaugural members are listed here to include SANDAG, the Port of San Diego, Clean Energy Alliance, San Diego Building Trade, San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, MAC, SD Regional Chamber of Commerce, Climate Action Campaign, and San Diego Green Building Council. So the feedback that was provided by this group has since been incorporated into a charter that will be sending out to members. So all listed here have confirmed their participation in the advisory committee, with the exception of San Diego Green Building Council, which has since been absorbed into the larger statewide organization, USGBC California, and no longer has a San Diego focus. However, an invitation to apply has been extended to USGBC California. Organizations interested in joining are invited to submit an application outlining their experience and contribution to the committee's goals. Applications are being accepted through February 27th, followed by an application review period in March, and notifications will be sent to selected organizations by late March, and followed by the first committee meeting in April. And the meetings will be held on a quarterly basis. So any organizations who would like to learn more can send an email to the email listed here, pe@sdcommunitypower.org. And for the last slide on the 2028 through 2035 business plan application, this is to provide an update and heads up that this California Public Utilities Commission has 4-year funding cycles. We submitted our application to form SD-REN in 2024 in the middle of the cycle, and the next required application is due in mid-March, so about a month from today. So there's been no significant changes to market data from the time we submitted our initial application, which requires us to not make any significant changes in this upcoming filing. So this application really just extends what we're doing now, allowing us to continue implementation of the 10 programs we're authorized to implement. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for that presentation. Sandra, do we have any public comment?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, it's really exciting to see these programs launch after 2+ years of really hard work by our staff and just wanted to ask about the community, the advisory board for this. You have to represent an organization. You can't just apply as an individual.
Yes, for this one, we're
Okay.
seeking individuals from organizations.
From organizations, okay. And it's the idea, of course, to not only do geographic distribution, but they have different specializations and technical sort of knowledge on that.
That is the intent.
Okay. Great. Members, are there any questions or comments? It's been a long night. We do have staff here, yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, I'd like to give the quarterly steps you presented to have it in my hand. Like a lot of things are going to be happening. So these committee members of the group, are they just volunteering or are there any funding for those groups to be joined the committee?
There is no planned compensation for committee members at this time, but that's something that we intend to revisit in the future.
It's exciting to have all these different cross-cutting and different programs started. Just a kind of a generic or general question. Of course, energy efficiency is a focus, but what if you go to a company or a small business and instead of replacing their equipment, make it more efficient, you say, hey, you're not exhausting your heat in your building, that's causing it to be less efficient. Let's put in some venting system. Is that an option for these kind of programs to reduce their energy use?
Yeah, so a lot of the programs are offering building energy assessments, and those are the type of things that we can make recommendations for to improve the
It doesn't
efficiency.
have to be just replace the equipment. Let's reduce the heat so you don't use so much energy. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, thank you again, Sheena. Thanks, Colin. And this is a receive and file item. No further action is needed. We'll move on to the next agenda item. That's item 11, 2026 Community Advisory Committee Work Plan. End of ad hoc committee report. That's a mouthful. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Montero Adams to provide this report.
Perfect, thank you. From here?
Yeah.
Great. Just quick recap on the work plan. For the Community Advisory Committee Policies and Procedures, the CAC must adopt a work plan that aligns with our scope of work and is annually updated and approved by the Board of Directors. And as a reminder, the reason why we go through this exercise is to identify 5 points. Define the CAC's purpose and goals, set strategic priorities that are consistent with those of the agency, manage resources effectively, including staff and member time, assign responsibilities and provide role clarity, and ensure accountability and transparency. Chair Harris assigned members Matt Boslock I to work on this ad hoc committee, and having met with the assistance of CEO, we were able to discuss and align a number of items, including focus areas and outcomes to the board, approved FY25 through 28 strategic plan goals, leverage internal meetings among officers to assess progress, and clarify member expectations on compliance with required trainings and forms, community event participation, and meeting preparation and participation. The draft 2026 work plan will be presented by staff during this next item and reflects the feedback that both Matt and I provided. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. This concludes my report and completes the scope of work of this ad hoc committee. I'm happy to jump in. Sandra, do we have any public comment on this item?
We did that.
Perfect. I will now turn it over to the CAC members for comments and questions. Great.
Are you gonna be presenting that? I didn't understand.
And the next item.
Oh, that's item 11 or 12? Oh, I see.
Great questions. With that, this is a receive and file item and no further action is needed. Thank you. Moving to our last agenda item, on the regular agenda, item 12, which is the 2026 Community Advisory Committee Work Plan Approval. I will turn it over to staff to provide this presentation.
I will keep this short and sweet as possible. So thank you, Louise, for going over kind of like the background for how and what we approved in a work plan. With that said, the draft before you and included in your addenda packet is recommending revisions that incorporate the feedback received from members during the year. So I've taken all of the comments that you provided and try to incorporate it as best as possible as part of this draft that you're seeing today, as well as that feedback from the CAC officers and the work plan ad hoc committee. I'll summarize them at a high level. So to better define the CAC's purpose and goals, the draft for your consideration introduces objectives with consolidated focus areas that incorporate an equity overview in both of them. To set strategic priorities that are consistent with those of the agency, all focus areas were also aligned with the agency's board approved 2025-2028 strategic goals that you were also part of developing earlier last year. To manage resources effectively, including staff and member time, the draft plan proposes leveraging internal meetings with our officers to assess the progress on this work plan. And to assign responsibilities and provide role clarity, the draft plan now expands on required training and compliance to include Community Powers Board and committee compensation and reimbursement policy, as well as explicitly recommends members attend and participate of at least 2 community events with Community Power. Now, to expand on the proposed objectives, and you can see here, this is the first part of the draft that it's included in your packet. Objective 1 under the draft plan is meant to ensure CAC members are well equipped to assist our board of directors in decision making, and that the CAC operates independently of as well as collaboratively with Community Power staff. So going back to that equity overview, consistent with Community Power's commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, the CAC will ensure an equity perspective in all of its operations and that the CAC represents a diverse cross-section of interests and skill sets and diverse social, economic, and racial backgrounds that are representative of all residents within the service territory of Community Power. This language we also use when it comes to referring to the type of recruitment that we do as part of, making sure that we have the diversity of our region represented within this group. Under this first objective, it also provides specificity on training and compliance requirements. So you see everything that you need to be, in compliance of right there. Operations, basically what's expected out of a smooth meeting, as well as civic engagement, outreach, and member recruitment. What is the expectation for members in terms of the roles and the responsibilities that they play in sharing back with their communities, everything that they hear during meetings. And then last but certainly not least, external educational presentations. I think that we had a great presentation today with CAC, and there's a great opportunity for us to continue equipping you with the tools that you need to, again, inform or advise our board in different items. The second part of our draft includes objective number 2, which is to represent and provide the views, concerns, priorities, and needs of their member agencies and the larger community on the strategic direction, goals, and programs of Community Power through comments and recommendations made during regular meetings, such as this one, briefings, ad hoc committees, and or otherwise directly connecting with Community Power staff and or the board to assist them in identifying issues of concern and opportunities to educate community members about Community Power. So it's the work that you do during meetings and offline with staff to be able to continue to support staff and the board in messaging what we're doing with the community and what we're doing in terms of our program development, really representing the views and concerns that you bring during meetings and all. So Consistent with Community Power's commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion principles, the CAC will ensure an equity perspective on the tasks brought before them and monitor the equitable distribution of programming and service levels. And this is taken directly from the 2025 CAC work plan. Focus areas within this objective outline key strategic priorities of the agency, including financial stability, energy portfolio development, community program delivery, legislative and regulatory, public affairs, and customer operations. So I will work to include any feedback that you may have tonight to include it as part of this plan, to then provide a final draft to the board of directors that they will consider for approval in their meeting later this month. So that concludes my presentation. Open to feedback.
Okay, Sandra, do we have any public comment on this?
We do not.
Okay. Yeah. How about members? Yes, Luis.
I know I had just spoke in the previous item, but two of the things that I really wanted to highlight from this process is, CEO, again, thank you so much for your guidance and leadership on helping us construct this. One of the things that we felt strongly on, you'll see in goal 1, civic engagement, outreach, and member recruitment, as was presented in one of the slides. The inclusion, the second bullet point, which is to attend and actively participate in at least 2 community events with community power. That is something that I've had an absolute joy in participating in. I attended the SDFC tree planting down at Kimball Park. I've had the chance to attend a number of functions in representing San Diego Community Power. And through that work, I've had the chance to meet our community stakeholders, connect with a number of organizations and individuals that otherwise I may not have had a chance to speak with, but also continues to push us to continue this work outside of our traditional boundaries. So that was one of the things that I felt should be itemized specifically to at least 2, not to state that, if anyone wants to do 5 or 10, please by all means, but it does give us that additional added opportunity. And I know there was something else I was going to highlight, but I've already forgotten, so I'll end there.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for the committee's work, and I absolutely support the 2 community events that it was good at. So looking forward to supporting.
Yes. Professor Anderson.
It seems to me that I've seen a list of community events we could participate in, but I can't find it. So can
Happy to
you?
reshare.
Yeah, would you send that out to all of us?
Yeah.
Since this is a recommendation, we can pick some.
Sometimes that was at the bottom of the email, so you might miss it. So maybe you should send it like bigger, bolded,
Okay.
highlight or something. Because if at the bottom, you might not catch.
All right.
You think that you read the most important things.
That must have been what I saw, but I can't find it.
In the meeting reminder,
Yeah.
I have to put
I
it
noticed.
up. Thank you for your feedback.
And I just wanted to say that this really, this work plan really reflects how this committee has evolved. I mean, I remember the first 3 years of this committee, and let me tell you, it's really quite a different committee in terms of the way that we interacted and the type of things that we were focused on. And I really feel like with this work plan, it's really keeping this committee active, involved, and playing an important role, because as the organization's grown and staff is now close to 100, right? We really have to define how we can be most effective in making this organization accountable, as well as ways that we can support. So I feel like this work plan is incorporates all of that. The committee, committee and staff.
I remembered the other item, which I was going to say, I really appreciated the updating of the first section training and compliance requirements. So just having that itemized, I know that when we all onboarded, having those items there felt a little bit daunting. I know some of those will be coming up for us. And then a general reminder for, I believe it's our Form 700, that if you all have not completed that just yet, it is coming up soon. And it is, again, one of those compliance items that we can do on our part to make sure that we are supporting SDCP to the best of our abilities.
Mr. Emerson.
So just, I have been going to my city council meetings and trying to use the brochure that you guys put together on this, solar battery safety program. I gave one meeting, I had a next one, I gave it the next meeting, so that they could share it with the city council members. And the last time, I also mentioned the grant program, but I didn't have any good, like a news flyer. And it seemed like the deadline was like 2 weeks away. And I mentioned it to them. I said, I hope you spread the word, but if there was like this, community program delivery, it's the staff that helped me. If I had had a little email, it was just addressed to the city. Please put this in your community newsletter. I could have, sent it to them and handed it to them, and maybe they could have got it into their newsletter in a more formalized way, rather than me verbally saying, hey, don't miss it. So that might be helpful if you could provide little news clips with a link and a highlight, and the deadlines, and then I can hand that to them and email it to them at the same time. I think then they could spread the word to the community nonprofits. I know you guys are doing it in very different, directions, but I would like to be able to have that if I go to a community, city council meeting, to really make sure that information gets to them early and gets to them in a form that they can spread the path, rather than at the end of the grant deadline, so.
Good
That's just a
suggestion. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's 8:00. If you have to leave, please do, but we still have a few more items to cover. I think we'll do them as quickly as possible.
So that's one, but we do need a motion.
Okay, we do need a motion for,
Yes. Board approval.
oh, yes. Obviously. Oh, my gosh, I'm trying to wrap up the meeting. So we do need a motion on this item. Ross Pike, first, yeah, second, Matt Vasilakis. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Committee member Stefani.
Aye.
Committee member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Committee member Kevin. Committee member Lee. Committee member Anderson.
Aye.
Committee member Sumner. Committee member Emerson.
Aye.
Committee member Vasilakis.
Aye.
Secretary Pike.
Aye.
Vice Chair Montero Adams.
Aye.
Chair Harris.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to our standing items, and we'll do this quickly. Does anyone have anything for the board of directors? If so, then please see me and or see him.
Oh, the board.
We're back. Okay. Thank you for your recommendations. Then, do any of our CAC members have items they'd like to share? This is an announcement. And there is a recap of the December and January board meetings. I'm gonna email that out to everyone. So you'll have that recap. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you, staff. Thank you, members. Oh,
Announcements?
yes, announcements.
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't.
You did.
I did.
So just real quick then.
Okay, is there something you can email out possibly?
Huh?
Is it something you could email to members? Through Zia?
Well, the good news is, although people say the electric vehicles are not being sold, just sharing that back in 2019, only 4 countries had more than 10% of the newly registered vehicles were electric. But last year, there were 39 countries all over the world. So it's growing, not reducing. And many of you are maybe familiar with that Norway has 95% of their newly registered vehicles are all the plug-in electric vehicles.
And they win all the gold medals.
And there's one new country.
Yes.
That has more than 76% of the newly registered vehicles that I would never guess, in my, and it begins with the letter N. And it's way up in the mountains. Anybody guess? North of Nepal.
What?
So they have a dam. Their government a couple of years ago started encouraging. Now I mean, can you imagine taking gasoline all the way up to the mountains so they could burn it and pollute the air up there? That clean air. So they're really moving forward. It's happening all over the world. I have a few flyers on the most popular ones. And some new ones coming out. If anybody wants to take these home with them.
All right, great. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I appreciate everyone's participation today. We're adjourned to our next regular meeting on March 12th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Sharon.